Hello, dear viewers. Today I'm going to be talking about France and the aftermath of the riots that occurred in late June and early July. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to Global Nationalism. I am a global nationalist and I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the world. Today I'm going to be talking about a country outside South Asia, France. France had riots in late June and early July this year, and I want to discuss why they happened, what happened, and how the government and the media and citizens have reacted to it. These riots were some of the most uh, were different than the other riot protests that happened, such as the yellow vests and the anti-pension scheme one. I didn't comment on those because I did not think that those were done for anti-national reasons, but were rather done because people felt a genuine anger towards their government. So yeah, these riots I feel have an anti-national element to it. From a nationalist perspective, they are significant, and I want to address them. Let's get started. Herr Marzouk, I'm talking about this because this is what led to the riots in France. On 27 June 2023, Nahel Merzouk, a French 17-year-old of Moroccan and Algerian descent, was shot and killed by police in Nanterre, a suburb of Paris, France. Initial reporting on the incident, informed by police statements, was later contradicted by a video posted online, which led to widespread protests and riots. Symbols of the state, such as town halls, schools, police stations, and other buildings, were attacked. Now, before I talk about the riots, let me talk about the killing itself. There are two versions of the story. One is the prosecution version, one is the version of the victim. The police say that two Paris police prefecture motorcycle officers noticed a Mercedes Benz with a Polish license plate driving at a high speed in a bus lane driven by a young looking person at around 7:55 a.m. The officers activated their warning signals, audible and visual, and indicated to the driver of the car, then stationary at a red light, to stop. The vehicle started moving and ran the red light. The officers followed the car and alerted their superiors via the radio. The car committed multiple traffic violations. Due to traffic congestion, the vehicle was eventually forced to stop. The police officers got off their motorcycles, pointed their guns at the driver, and ordered him to turn off the engine. Instead, the vehicle started to pull away, and one of the police officers fired a shot at the driver at point blank range. The vehicle continued forward before crashing into street furniture. And the police officer who fired a shot did first aid to the driver but was pronounced dead at 9:15 a.m. He is alleged to have disobeyed and committed several traffic offenses, endangering the lives of pedestrians and cyclists, and also refused to turn off the ignition, upon which one of the officers shot him. Now, the police version was challenged by a video. According to the police, an officer fired his weapon as the young driver was about to run him over. According to the the victim's lawyers, this version, citing self-defense, was challenged after the publication of a video showing that the car was not in a position to harm the police officers and was not heading towards them. The investigation is not complete. So while it is always tragic when a young 17-year-old is killed, I must say that I think that he is not innocent completely. He did commit traffic offenses. He was driving fast on a bus lane and without a license. He did endanger the lives of a pedestrian and a cyclist. So I understand that the police had to act against him, but I don't know if shooting and killing him was the appropriate response. I am not a police officer. I do not live in France. I do not know what their uh, rules and laws and regulations are for police and the use of force. so I will not comment on that. I'm now going to talk about the riots themselves. On the day of his death and the next day, 28 June, riots were reported where rioters threw projectiles at police, let off fireworks, and set cars, bus shelters, rubbish bins, and a school on fire. By the end of the day, there were at least 20 police officers injured, 10 police cars damaged, and 31 arrested. 2,000 police officers and gendarmes were deployed to deal with the outbreak of violence. On 28 June, riots were reported in Amiens, Dijon, Lyon, Lille, Saint Etienne, Clermont-Ferrand, and Strasbourg. French media reported numerous incidents around the Greater Paris region. There were reports of fireworks being directed at the Montreuil Town Hall, which is located at the eastern edge of Paris. On the 29th of June, 6,200 people participated in a march in support of Merzouk's family in Anterre. I uh, sympathize with these people. We understand they were outraged by the killing and view it as unlawful and immoral, and they have a right to march in peacefully. However, the problem is that there was violence during this protest. A car reportedly crashed into a Lidl store in Nantes, after which it was vandalized and looted. This shows that many of the people rioting were not interested in the cause, but were just looking for a reason to commit crimes. There are reports of the Clichy Sous Boys town hall being lit on fire by rioters. There are 875 arrests nationally. A vigil march was held in Ontario in memory of Marzouk. Again, march if you need to, but do not be violent. You have no right to be violent. God, why can't people understand that? On the 1st of July and the 3rd and 4th of July and 8th of July, violence continued. Four officers were injured on the 1st and 2nd of July. On the 3rd of July, arrests and violence activity began to abate. A demonstration was held in support of return to Republican order. After the attack on the Paris suburbs mayor's home the previous day, there were still 24 buildings damaged in the Paris area and 159 cars set on fire. 8th July, around 100 political parties, labor unions, and associations for police reform called for demonstrations across France, specifically demanding the abrogation of the 2017 law permitting police use of firearms for refusal to stop, as well as in depth reform of the police, its intervention techniques, and its arsenal. So, this is something I'll talk about later, the behavior of the police and its relations with the minorities. On 10th July, French authorities banned the sales of fireworks to reduce further protests. So this is how the riots went. They were for more than 10 days. Absolutely unacceptable and ridiculous. And I completely condemn them without any uh, hesitance or equivocation. Let's look at how they people reacted. First, let's see how they responded to the killing of Nahel Merzouk itself. The French President Emmanuel Macron declared the incident inexcusable and unforgivable, adding that it moved the entire nation. And this statement was opposed by the Alliance Police Nationale, the largest French police union, who criticized Macron for condemning our colleagues before justice has had the chance to speak. A far right politician, Marine Le Pen, I disagree with this description by Wikipedia. She is not far right, she is simply right wing. Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally Party, dubbed Macron's statements as excessive and irresponsible, adding that the president is prepared to ignore constitutional principles in a bid to put out a potential fire. I agree with her, and if you want to know more about Marine Le Pen and Emmanuel Macron, you can watch my previous video about the French election. You'll see a link to that in the top of the screen. I agree with her because he had already condemned the officer when there was no judgment given by any court that said that he was guilty. That is excessive and irresponsible, and it is against the innocent until proven guilty. So, yeah, completely agree with her. The left wing politician and former La France Insoumise party leader, Jean Luc Mélenchon, called for police reform. Now, some celebrities in France came out in support of Marzouk. Kylian Mbappe took to Twitter to denounce the incident as unacceptable and sent condolences to Marzouk's family, and several other um, celebrities did the same. The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed its shock and consternation at the brutal and tragic disappearance of the young Nahel, adding that it trusted the French government to assume its duty of protection and security for Algerian news nationals on French territory. This makes me wonder whether if Nahel was, since he was born in France, and he was not, as far as I know, an Algerian citizen. I don't know why the Algerian government has to comment on this. The Moroccan press was critical of what it called Algerian interference in internal French domestic affairs and the use of the crisis to political advantage. I agree with the Moroccan press. There is no reason for Algeria to speak about this. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights asked France to address systemic racism within its police forces and call for the protests to be peaceful. This is a balanced statement, but uh, it is a bit inaccurate because it assumes that systemic racism within France's police forces exists, which has not been proven and is not a fact, so it's unfair to make that assumption, but at least it's addressed to both sides and calls for protests to be peaceful. So it's not a complete capitulation, as is often happens towards rioters, as often happens by human rights activists. This have a economic impact. French firms don't see riots as long-lasting scar. They say a week of riots haven't dented competitiveness, but business travels got scrapped and some of the staffers joined the riots. So there will be some business problem, but I think they'll recover. Nothing serious. And I think will be the long-term impact of this. For that, we need to look at the riots that happened in France in 2005. In 2005, in 2005, French riots occurred in reaction to the death of two Muslim teenagers who were electrocuted while hiding from police in an electrical substation. These riots lasted for about a month and exactly 3 weeks, and more than 4,000 people were arrested. So and this had an impact on France with respect to Islamic terrorism. In his 2015 book, Terror, the Genesis of the French Jihad, Keppel wrote that between 2005 and 2012, there was a major shift within Islam in France as a result of the riots. The most significant consequence of the 2005 riots was the emergence of the generation of post colonial immigrants. Through the scenes of devastation, the looting, burning of vehicles, and harassment of the police, it sent an existential message to the rest of the population. This message was the assertion of Islamic identity, a phenomenon some commentators now call the re Islamization of French Muslims, specifically among the young. Now to my closing remarks. I think that this whole situation was tragic, and I wish that that young boy was not killed, but I do sympathize with the police and think that my instincts tell me that they acted responsibly, but I want to wait for the court to give its judgment, and then I'll probably make a video when that happens about it. And yeah, I do fear that these riots are going to create more terrorists because they've seen that they can attack the French state and be successful in damaging it, injuring its police officers, killing people, burning buildings to the ground, looting stores. They've seen that they have power and they will be more motivated. However, they've also seen that the French government can repress mass violence by them. So I think there'll be some people who will be dissuaded. But unless Macron stops immigration to France and deports all illegal immigrants, this problem will still continue. And since he has not made any policy changes like that, I fear that this issue will continue. Now, some people blame this on racism by the French police with respect to the suburbs in France, which are dominated by minorities who are of uh, African and Arabic descent, mainly Muslims, but also non Muslims. And I do doubt that there may be some police officers in France who are racist, but more than that, I think it's the fact that these suburbs, these enclaves, the banlieue as they're called, are basically run down. They people there do not have proper jobs. Their children are not educated. Their income is less, and many of them are involved in crimes. This causes the police to act against them, which unfortunately can cause some innocent people to be caught in the crossfire. I think if the immigrants and the children of immigrants in France want to have a good relation with the French police, they must obey the laws of the country that they have either moved into or were born into, and not the laws and culture and norms of their former countries. Of course, they can follow their culture of their other countries as long as it does not violate the laws of their own countries of France. So I completely condemn any violence against the French government. Whatever issues you have with them, you must resolve them peacefully. As an Indian, I would not immigrate to a foreign country and start attacking it and insulting it and expecting it to change to my preferred views and opinions. I would follow the laws of that country. And I expect immigrants who come to India to do the same with respect to the Indian laws. Well, that's all I wanted to say. Please share your thoughts about this video in the comment section. If you want to see other videos about countries outside South Asia, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I used for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Vande Mataram.